What is up, guys? I'm gonna do a get ready with me as well as a story time on my brother and a little bit more of who he was and what happened in his lifetime as well as mine. So it all basically started when he was in, I would say, 5th grade. I'm not gonna be the best on this timeline here because I literally don't remember much, but I'm gonna tell you guys what I do remember. So it basically all started in 5th grade for him. I believe I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade, but he got caught with marijuana, and he was always kind of a troubled kid, but he had got caught with it. It was in his locker at home. My dad found it. My dad took him to the police station with the marijuana in his hand, and he told the police basically that my brother had weed, and that's kind of where it all started. So my brother got in trouble. I don't really remember if he went to the juvenile detention center. I think he did. He went throughout his life. I believe he went about, I would say, 12 times, 10 times. I don't know if I'm overestimating, but if I am, oops. But he went to juvenile a lot. I don't really remember how many. I don't remember if he went to the D home for that. But that's basically where it all started. And when he was 12 years old, his friend's mom called my mom and told my mom that he had been drinking and to go pick him up. He had been alcohol poisoned at that point, and we went and picked him up. My dad was in the car, I was in the car, my mother was in the car. And when we picked him up, he had a trash bag. We had a trash bag for him, and he was throwing up in it. I don't even think he could talk, but there was a fire station like right by that place, and I remember we went to that fire station, and it was so bad, like it was horrible. And I remember that my dad and my brother were arguing. That it was really, really bad, I remember. And the firemen had told me to go inside of their office, so because I was crying, and I was just telling my brother Elijah, that's his name, I was telling him no, like stop and stuff, but obviously that didn't work. But I was crying, and I went in the fire station, and I was sitting in their office, and they were trying to help my brother. I guess they called an ambulance. I think they called an ambulance. An ambulance came, and he got admitted into the hospital for alcohol poisoning, I believe, and it was really, really bad. And that's the first time that my brother and my dad like really got into it. My brother was saying some really mean things, so was my dad, but yeah. And it basically, I would say between those years, he really got addicted to alcohol. And I just need to say this to clear the air. My parents never, ever, ever enabled him to alcohol. After that one time, they never enabled him to alcohol. They never allowed it, nothing like that. But he always found his way around it, obviously. You know, like a 13-year-old, 12-year-old kid is going to find a way around to get liquor, and there's lots of ways, and plenty of people who don't care about you that will sell you liquor, you know. So I do believe there was a few more times that my mom and I went to go pick up my brother, like super drunk. He would always be super drunk, and it would be just my mom and I, because she would always be afraid to tell my dad, because my dad would always take it to like the police, or my dad would always take it to law enforcement, which I don't think is like a bad thing, but you know. And my brother really put us through a lot. Those times that he did get drunk and my mom and I went to go pick him up, I remember he would always talk shit to me. He was always really, really mean on alcohol. And he wasn't the same person at all. And when he was sober, he was extremely intelligent. He was a great person. He was very compassionate. He was the realest person that I have ever came across in this lifetime. I just have to say that. And there would be a lot of times where he would be drunk and we would go pick him up, and you know, he would just be extremely abusive to my mom and I. And we would never tell my dad because of what the things my dad would do when he did drink. My dad was a really mean person as well. And it's not, I don't believe that so much that it's mean, so much that he was so strict, I would say. And everyone gets mean, obviously. And my dad did get mean at times. He was, he had a lot of problems too himself. Everyone does. And I'm kind of losing my headspace here on where I'm at. And there's just so much that happened within the years. I went through this. 10 years of my life I went through my brother drinking, my dad and my brother fighting. So it's honestly like there's a big block there of what I don't remember. But I just remember always being scared to be home. I remember always being afraid of what would happen when we picked up my brother and he was drinking. So him and his friends would always sneak liquor into the house, and as much precautions as my parents took, they still found their ways and they still snuck it in, whether it was through the window or whatever. But my parents, even at one point, would even check all of the friends' bags just because we didn't want him drinking. And sometimes there would be liquor in their bags, but other times they would sneak it in through my brother's room window. And, there was nothing that we could do about that. So he would drink a lot with his friends. He was a big party person, and I wouldn't say so much that he was a big party person because he just loved partying. He was a big party person because he liked to distract his depression and anxiety with partying and doing drugs. And that's kind of how I was at a point too. So I can't blame him. But his friends would always drink with him, and then he would my brother got really, really aggressive on alcohol, and I think that's one thing his friends always failed to understand, that just because that's how he was on liquor didn't mean that's how he was when he was sober. He was a completely different person when he was sober. He was a great person when he was sober. He was just not the same person. And so he would scare a lot of his friends away with a lot of abuse and how aggressive he was. He had guns, so he was really crazy with his guns, and he was really crazy, and I can't even explain like how crazy he was. Like, I can explain in this way, which would make more sense. So my ex-boyfriend and my ex-boyfriend's friends were at my house one time. My mom was out of town for work because she traveled for work at a point, and my brother was drinking. I don't know if they were drinking. I don't remember a lot. There's a big block in my life, and I just remember that my brother was being really cool with them at first. Everything was cool, but then at one point he got aggressive, just like he always does and did, and he was holding my ex-boyfriend and his friends hostage inside of his room, and he wouldn't let them out. And my brother was literally like extremely aggressive on liquor, that nobody wanted to mess with him. Everybody was scared of him, and the fact that his friends would still enable him to liquor even after they knew how he got on liquor, it just baffles my mind. And I remember towards the end of his life, he was reaching out to all of his friends, like telling them he wants to hang out and he wants to, reunite or whatever. And a lot of his friends would come to me and tell me, like, Elijah wants to hang out with me, but I'm scared. And I'm like, well, don't drink with him. Like, none of his friends seemed to have realized that it was the liquor that did that to him, and they would literally always give him liquor, and they never knew who he was when he was sober, so they just thought that he was just a scary person, and he wasn't. He really, really wasn't. And anyways, that is just like a small explanation. I remember my dad and my brother would even sometimes get physical when they would fight or argue. They would get physical. Sometimes my dad would literally throw my brother on the ground. I remember one time dad caught my brother watching some inappropriate stuff, but he was not supposed to, and my dad got his iPod and threw it against the fireplace. Our fireplace was like cement, so his whole entire iPod shattered. It was like 2 a.m. and I was just sitting there crying because obviously I didn't understand completely what was going on. I just understood that they were arguing and I didn't like it. I was crying. I remember I was upset, but that's besides the fact. One time my brother was supposed to be at a concert because we let him go to a concert with his friends. And I guess my brother left the concert early to go get some liquor, and I remember that night it was like 3 in the morning. We started looking for him at 1 a.m. and he wasn't answering his phone. He wasn't answering at all. We kept calling and calling him, my mom and I. So we went out to search for him around the concert in downtown. And we kept looking and looking and looking. We were looking everywhere for him. And then I finally see this guy in a corner. Like just like bunched up. Like in a little corner bunched up. Like, and I thought it was a homeless guy. I didn't know, but I was like, wait. I was like, Mom, I think that's Elijah. And she was like, what? And she got out and we got him, and it was him. He was in the corner of the streets. We just found him, and you know, that whole night my mom had been worried, and she had been like watching over him, like texting him, like making sure that he wasn't drinking. My mom and my father tried their absolute best to keep him away from alcohol, but there's only so much you can do when they're severely addicted. Anyways, that night I remember that we went to McDonald's and we went to go get him coffee and I think something to eat to sober him up, and he was just yelling at me. He was yelling at my mom. He was telling us off. It was bad, and that's throughout my childhood. That's like a lot of what I remember. It's just like all the yelling, all of the violence, and it's like, it's sad to say, but I feel like my life as a child was always like that. Like there was always something going on. There was always some sort of traumatic event going on. There was always some sort of violence going on around my house. That's just basically what I grew up around, and it was normal for me. There was even points in our lives where my brother was so addicted, you know, he would shoot his guns in the house, and I would, you know, tell my mom, and she wouldn't want to believe it, so she would be like, oh, it's a firecracker, but we knew for a fact it was guns he was shooting in the house. I have pictures, I'll try to insert them here. I have pictures of bullet holes throughout my whole entire room. There was even a point where his friend sold him spice, and that night was really bad, really, really bad, and it's kind of harder for me to discuss this because I know that wasn't him, and the way that you guys see it, you guys don't see it the way that I see it and the way that I lived through it, but I'm gonna try to explain it to the best of my ability. My brother was on spice that night. I remember I had left because I was scared of him. At one point, I believe I was like 12 years old. He was like 2 or 3 years older than me. I'm horrible with timelines, so don't don't hold me to it. One time he had a knife, and he had it behind his back, and I was laying on my bed, and he was leaning over me, and he had the knife, and he was bringing it up here, and he was trying to hide it, like he was trying to hide the knife, and but I saw it. And I ran because I was scared that he was gonna stab me with it. Why am I looking at myself and not the camera? But I was scared that he was going to stab me with the knife. I remember that, and I ran across the street to my grandpa's house because at that time my grandpa and my grandma lived across the street from my mom's house. So I ran there, and my grandpa came over to my house while I was at my grandpa's, and my brother followed me over, and he was just telling me off and telling me I was a whore and telling me just all of these nasty things, and you know, he was drunk. He was really, really drunk. And I remember the night that he was on Spice, basically he was beating my mom up. I believe this was after my dad had passed away. He was beating up my mom in a corner, and my other brother Noah, he walked out and he kind of snapped it out of him, and he was like, why are you doing that to mom? And I guess my brother snapped out of it, and I guess he was beating the shit out of my mom, and then out of nowhere my brother snapped out of it, and he said, oh my gosh, he was like, Mom, I didn't know that was you. And then he just started crying and crying and crying because he didn't know that it was his mom that he was beating up. So there's just like a short explanation of what drugs and spice and things like that can really do to you. Like you're not even you anymore. But I remember there was a lot of times throughout my life and childhood that we had to always leave our house because the cops wouldn't go inside and arrest him. They would tell us to leave the house, and they would tell us to go find somewhere to stay, go find a motel, go sleep at your grandma and grandpa's, but don't go inside there because we're not going to do anything. And a lot of the reason for that was because my brother had a gun, and they didn't want to have to shoot him, and they knew how, after so many times of calling the cops, they knew how my brother was. They knew that my brother had a severe alcohol addiction. And they were basically scared of him too. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily scared, but yeah, they were basically scared to enter too because they knew what he was capable of, they knew he had guns, and they really didn't want to take his life. So we would always have to leave, and we would go stay at motels. I remember sometimes we would go stay at my grandpa's and grandma's sometimes because my brother was so drunk he was shooting in the house or being abusive that we just had to leave. There was nothing that we could do. And I wish that I had more videos or explanation how it actually was living that lifestyle for years, but I don't, and this is the best that you guys are gonna get. So my brother was always very protective over me. He always was worried about me. He's always worried about who I was hanging out with, all those sorts of things. He was always a protective brother. He was always a good brother when he wasn't drinking. But these days like these, when my brother would drink, it would be weekends in a row. It would be days in a row. It would be weeks in a row. He'd go on these rampages of drinking. So there would be like 2 weeks in a row where he would drink, and then that next week he would do so good that he wouldn't drink because he tried not to drink. He tried to do everything but drink, and he got more aware over time that like it's an addiction taking over his life, so he tried to stop. He went to rehab many times. I believe he went to rehab like 4 times, and he kept trying and trying. I remember after he passed away, I remember seeing books on his desk like how to find God, how do you stop yourself from addiction, how do you keep yourself from drinking, how to stop anxiety. He had horrible, extreme, severe anxiety, and with that anxiety, he would go to liquor and drink. That's how he would get rid of his anxiety. He would drink, and it was really bad when he didn't drink. It was misery. It was complete misery that I was living in. And I'm not saying that there wasn't any good times, because there was. But as much as I hate to say it, a lot of the good times were blocked out. I don't remember a lot of the good times because just there was so many bad things and experience and trauma that I went through that's all I really remember, and I hate to remember it in that way. I'm sorry, I'm trying to hold myself back from like, I guess, crying. So that's why I sound like that. But yeah, there was good times. There was really good times sometimes, and that's when he wasn't drunk or wasn't drinking. So after those rampages, he would go 2 weeks drinking, 1 week not drinking, 2 weeks drinking, 1 week not drinking, and that's just how we lived our lives. I remember he would drink so much that we would try so hard to just get him to fall asleep. But like, we would try to sober him up with food. We would try everything in our power to sober him up, but it never lasted. Anyways, I'm gonna fast forward to 2017 when my dad passed away. So my dad and I also never had the best relationship. When we were younger, I remember I was always a daddy's girl. I remember I was always a papa's girl. My grandpa was more of like a dad to me, more than my dad really ever was, as much as, like, I hate to say it, but I just never had that bond with my dad. I never had that close feeling with my family. I did at a point, but it never lasted. So I don't know, I always feel so distant from my family. As much as I hate feeling so distant from them, I feel that way. And I just feel awkward, I feel weird, I feel distant. Like, a lot of these things changed our family's relationship over time as well. And so in 2017, you know, I was addicted to Xanax, and so I also had a problem as well, but I had overdosed on, I believe, 18 Xanax or 17 Xanax, and I remember I had blacked out. I don't remember much, but I remember that my brother's ex-girlfriend told me that she took me to the bathroom and she was trying to get me to throw up. I guess I was just so out of it, and she kept trying to stick her fingers down my throat. And I remember my brother, I remember this part vaguely, that my brother was knocking on the bathroom door. This was when my mom was out of town. My mom didn't know anything that was going on. She was working out of town. And I had overdosed on those Xans. My brother was wondering why his girlfriend was in there with me, and he walked in and he started sticking his fingers down my throat as well, but obviously that didn't work. I didn't throw up, I guess, and I guess they were taking me out. They were walking me out to the hospital, and my brother was drunk at the time, so I guess my other brother, Noah, he had told me that my brother kicked me in the head with his Timberland boots while I was all zanned out and overdosed, and I guess he kicked me in the head because he was mad at me. And then they drove me to the hospital, and they dropped me off there and they left me there. But you know, I was thankful that I even got to the hospital. I believe I woke up like 2 days later, and I remember my mom was right there with me, and you know, at that point I just felt so bad, and I kind of just realized, like, I got a second chance at life. Not everybody gets a second chance at life like I did, and obviously that'll show you guys through my brother. But I remember there was a lot of times, I remember that night that my dad was, I guess I should basically go over the rehab part of when I was in like rehab or a psychiatric hospital for kids or whatever. So I was there for, I believe, 2 weeks, and my dad was in the hospital. My dad had cancer for 5 years. I believe he was diagnosed when I was 9 years old, if I'm correct. And my parents were about to get a divorce when that happened, but I guess they decided not to, just because, you know, circumstances, and he got cancer. So, basically, I remember being in the car, and my mom was crying, and my brother and I were like, "What's wrong, Mom?" And she's like, "Your dad has cancer." And she was sitting there crying. And my brother and I, we didn't understand what cancer was, so I was like, "Oh, he has cancer, he's sick, he's gonna get better, okay." But this was a 5-year thing, actually, and my dad would be in and out of the hospital, in and out of the hospital. You know, every time he would go in the hospital, we would be like, "Okay, we just have to wait for Dad to get home." And when he would get home, it was misery, because my dad, off those pills and steroids and all those chemo and everything that he had to take, he was very, I would say, mean. He was very violent. He was very serious those times that he did get out of the hospital, because he would be in and out. So, I mean, we would be on eggshells. We would walk on eggshells when my dad got out of the hospital. Like, we couldn't do anything. Even my mom. My mom was walking on eggshells too with my father when he had cancer. So, basically, fast forward to when I was in the psychiatric hospital. It was for 2 weeks. My dad was in the hospital. I do believe he was getting out, but he was getting out on home care. So, I was like, okay, he's just gonna get out of the hospital again. He's gonna be better. I remember thinking throughout those 2 weeks, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna change my relationship with my dad, because I don't want it to be like this anymore. I was like, I want to go, you know what? As soon as I get out of the hospital with my dad, and as soon as my dad gets better, I'm gonna go to the mountains with him, because my dad loved the mountains. So that was my plan. I never told him my plan, but that was my plan in my head. I was like, I'm gonna go for a walk with him. I'm gonna go to the mountains with him. I'm gonna do all these things with him and cherish every moment that I have with him. So throughout those 2 weeks, I was kind of mad at him. So I never really talked to him when I was in rehab. He always kind of tried, but I was also scared because I had overdosed, and, you know, I was just scared of how he would react, because he was a really strict person. Also, but he was very, very understanding, and he was very, very nice about it, you know. He really, like, I had never seen my dad that understanding before, or that nice. So, fast forward to when I got out of the psychiatric hospital, my dad was on home care. I could kind of tell that my dad wasn't really gonna get better, just because he had never been on home care like that before, where they brought like an actual hospital bed in our house, and he would sleep on the hospital bed. At that point, he couldn't even walk. He couldn't get up. Nothing. His cancer got so bad that his bones turned like cottage cheese, and they all just started breaking, you know. Like, it was, the cancer was multiple myeloma. It's a really rare blood cancer, I believe, and it hits all 3 of the blood cells. Not just 1, but 3. So, it's something that never goes away or never heals. But yeah, so, after home care, I remember I would sit with my dad every single day that week, and we would spend some time together. And, you know, I was regretting everything. And my brother had just got out of rehab too, from drinking, and he was clean, and we were all so happy. Like, he was in rehab. I believe that was the longest time he had ever been in rehab, and it was for, I believe, 3 to 6 months. And basically after okay, so my brother came home. He was clean. My dad, he was on home care. Though I remember the nurse told us that he has maybe 2 weeks. Okay, it was Thanksgiving, November 2017 of Thanksgiving, and I remember we had our last Thanksgiving together. Everyone was coming to visit him, and I took videos with him, and I told him, I was like, you're not going to be there on my wedding day. I kind of just felt that I knew that his last days were coming, so I tried to spend as much time with him as I could. And, you know, I was trying to utilize that time to forgive myself as well, because I had a lot of regrets over the fact that I held this grudge over my dad because of how he treated us throughout the years, and I held this grudge over him where I stayed mad at him and I didn't talk to him for, I don't know, that, like, the whole month, almost the whole month of November, I think, that he was in the hospital. Or I think he was in there since October too, so I don't know, I think this is the longest time that he was actually in the hospital. So when he was coming home, I was like, oh yeah, Dad's coming home. like, okay, everything's gonna be normal again. But it later hit me, and I later started to realize that, yeah, he was coming home, but it wasn't gonna be the same as how it always was. And basically, I remember that night, my brother, I remember smelling liquor on him, and he was crying, and he was telling me, like, Sydney, come spend time with Dad. He was like, I don't think Dad is gonna make it another night. I believe that was the last night that my dad lived. And my brother sat there with him for hours and hours, and I don't know, I don't know what I did. I know I was feeling really sad, but I think I had went back to my room, and I was just crying, and I fell asleep. So I woke up that next morning, and my mom had her room door closed, which I thought was kind of odd, because that whole week, every morning, she had the room door open for us to just go visit with my dad. And so I tried walking in there, and she was like trying to shut the door on me, and I was opening it. I was like, let me see. I was like, let me in. I was like, what happened? I remember I walked in, and I saw my dad there, and he was dead. My dad was gone, just like that. And hold on. I remember after my dad passed away, I never really believed it. I feel like I went numb to the fact that he passed away. I went completely numb, and I never showed emotion towards it. I was just numb. I didn't feel for it. I felt numb. And so later on, my brother just started drinking again. He started doing his thing again. This was in 2018. Ooh. And I believe that's when I started doing bad as well. Is in 2018, I started doing cocaine, I started doing liquor, I started doing all kinds of other drugs. I believe I was 14 years old when my dad died. And my brother was doing really bad. I remember that's when he started shooting in the house. Was when after my dad passed away, that's when my dad really got out of my brother got really out of control. Was after my dad passed away. My brother was extremely depressed, severely depressed, and he would just drink his pain away. And he lived with many regrets over the fact that him and my father never had the best relationship. And so he would just drink all the pain away and all the regrets away and do drugs. You know, one time he got into this acid stage where he got addicted to acid for so long, and not for so long, I think it was for like 2 months, but he would do like 10 times in one day. Like, it was insane. And then basically that whole year of 2018, I think I kind of moved out. I kind of stopped going around my house. That's when I got with my boyfriend in April of 2018. So after April, I kind of just stayed out all day, all night, partying all day, all night, doing drugs all day, all night, drinking, doing coke, doing Xanax. I was the worst I had ever been. I was addicted severely to drugs, especially Xanax, especially cocaine. It was really, really bad. And then I remember that whole year, my brother, it was just misery with my brother. I remember that he just kept drinking, and I think it was towards the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019, my brother kind of started to come around to, this is a little bit of a hard timeline to remember. So I remember in September of 2018, my boyfriend got shot because we were doing the wrong things. We were never doing people right. We were always involved in the wrong group. You know, we did some bad shit. So my boyfriend got shot, and I was in the car with him. I drove my boyfriend to the hospital because I tried to call the ambulance and they put me on hold because the service was bad up there, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I was 15 at the time. I believe I had just turned 15. So I was driving, so I was like, no, I'm not gonna wait. Like, I'm not gonna hold. I'm driving to the hospital. I didn't know how to drive. You know, I kind of had an idea because my dad would teach me when I was younger in a way. So I drove over to the hospital. It was a 12-minute drive, it said on the navigation, but I got there in 5 minutes. I was passing every single red light. I remember I even went to the ambulance exit and kind of messed up his car, and I remember that the hospital was closed. I remember seeing the hospital closed, and there's a security guard, and he saw me out front, and he saw my boyfriend on the floor out front, and I was kind of waving him down, and I was screaming, help, help, help. And at that point, the whole drive of driving to the hospital, I kept telling my boyfriend, hold your wounds. I was put pressure on your wounds. As I'll keep talking to me, don't stop talking to me, don't close your eyes. I remember I learned the basics of when someone gets shot. I learned the basics of what to do, and I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. And I remember basically, I was just talking to him the whole time, and so we got there, and he made it through, luckily, gladly, he made it through. He almost came out paralyzed, so I'm blessed that he didn't. He came out completely healed and fine, and I'm blessed that he's okay. And today we're still together now, and we're doing much better. We're not involved in the wrong group anymore. But I remember at the end of 2018, or it was maybe the beginning of 2019, I had stopped doing coke, and I had stopped because I remember how bad my withdrawals were, that I was just I don't want to put myself through this anymore. I never really even felt good on cocaine. The way it made me feel was extremely irritated, extremely mad, extremely angry. Yeah, I would feel like my heart pumping, but I would feel so irritated. Nobody could talk to me on that drug. That's when my brother started to come more around, and I started to come more around my house. I remember my brother was so happy because after that time, after my boyfriend had got shot, we were still involved in the wrong things. We were still involved in the wrong group. We never trusted anybody, but we were still involved in the wrong group. And obviously that didn't last very long. They ended up switching up. We ended up pulling ourselves out of that environment because we started growing and we started learning that that's not what we want for our lives, that we do want something better for ourselves. So as far as that, we cut everybody out of our lives that were in that environment, and nobody had heard from us again after that. And in 2019, my brother and I got close again, my brother Elijah and I, and he was still severely addicted to alcohol, and he was still extremely depressed. I think around this time is when he got more open about his depression, and I remember there would be nights where he would stay up with my mom all night, telling my mom, I want to die, I don't want to be alive, I don't want to experience this pain anymore. My mom would sit there and talk to him all night up until the morning and the sunrise, about depression and about how he can get through it, And basically my brother was so happy. We started getting close again, and he was finally I got my sister back, because that's when I started learning, and I started giving my brother even advice about the wrong group and the wrong friends and the wrong environment, and we had both kind of been learning together. I remember my boyfriend would be in my brother's room with him for nights, for all night until 4 or 5 in the morning. And I would be kind of scared for my boyfriend, because my brother was very impulsive. You never knew what he did on liquor. One moment he would be happy, and the next moment he would switch, just like that. he was extremely impulsive and unpredictable. So we were always scared of him. And I remember during those times, my brother he pretended to be so happy, but I can see the pain, and I felt the suffering in him. I knew that he was extremely depressed. I knew he didn't want to drink anymore. He was learning that alcohol was destroying him and his life, and that's just not what he wanted anymore for himself. And for an addicted and depressive and someone who has that much anxiety, it's not easy for them to just, stop. He couldn't just stop. So I remember he would try with beers, or he would try with low alcoholic beverages, or even those ones that they didn't have alcohol in them, but they tasted like alcohol. I don't remember what those are called, but I remember he would even try with those. He would read all these books on how to stop addiction, how to stop anxiety, how to stop depression. He was trying his absolute hardest to just stop liquor, and he couldn't just stop because he started when he was 11 years old. He was 17, gonna be 18 years old, He had done that for 10 years, almost 10 years of his life. So it wasn't easy for him to just stop. But he was trying, and that's really all that matters. I remember the times that he was sober. I remember when he would try and say he would say can you guys drive me somewhere because I've had a little drink. So he was really actually trying his best to stop liquor. He was really depressed. I remember at the end of March, my brother and I got really close, and things were coming to an end. I remember my brother kept saying he wanted to kill himself, and I never really took him seriously just because he would say it a lot. I didn't really completely understand depression at that time. So there was a lot of times when my brother said he wanted to kill himself. I remember he would even tell my mom, he's suffering so much and he's in so much pain that, he wants to kill himself, but he doesn't want to risk coming back alive and disabled. So that's one of the things he was scared of, coming back alive and disabled. I remember it was 2 nights before he had killed himself. It was in April, or maybe March, the end of March. I had went with him to main event, and he was the happiest he had ever been. He was trying to get me a stuffed animal. I think it was at round 1, not main event, but he was trying to get me a stuffed animal, and he had his little credit card thing, the credits that they hold on the cards, and he kept telling my boyfriend and I, he was like, you guys play this game together? I want to see you guys play. You guys make memories. I want to watch you guys. And there's even time, we would play with him too, but I remember my brother was like, you're so beautiful, Sydney. You're gonna be a star. I just know it. And he's like, you're literally, so beautiful. And this is, one of the last times that I talked to my brother. So it's kind of hard. And I remember, he was telling my boyfriend as well, because my boyfriend makes music. He was telling my boyfriend, don't let anyone tell you different. You're literally gonna be number 1 one day. And, I've held that. I've held myself to that, to the fullest extent. That I know one day I'm gonna make an impact on everybody's lives in the best, most positive way possible. I know I'm not the best at explaining things, but I'm writing a book about everything, in detail, and that'll be out fairly soon. Not super soon, but fairly soon. But anyways, I remember April 2nd, I believe. I went to go, my boyfriend and I, we went and ate with my mom. Things were getting back to normal in a way, like, not normal because I never knew what normal was, but things were going good, I can say. And I remember that day after we had lunch with my mom, my brother called my mom and he was mad that he stepped in dog shit. And basically my brother chugged a half bottle of Sovedka, a vodka, just the original flavor. And after that, I guess he went up to his ex-girlfriend's house. He had did 3 hit and runs on the way over to his ex-girlfriend's house. There was 3 hit and runs that he did, and I guess my mom told me to go check on him. We were already back in the west side in the area because my mom worked over on the east side, and we were back on the west side, so we were in the area. We were about 10 minutes away from where he was from. And I guess my mom told me go check on him because he's shooting outside of the house, acting crazy, drunk, in front of his ex-girlfriend's house. And they were together for a really long time. They were great together. They were toxic, but they were good together. But things don't always work out, and she was a good person, and I am forever thankful for her. And if you see this video, just know that I am forever thankful for you, for always being there and caring for my brother. It means the absolute world to me. I know that you guys didn't always have the best times, and there would be toxic times, but you were great. You were great to him. Despite that, besides the fact, I remember I was on the phone with his ex, and she told me, I don't know, she was telling me, like, go over there. I was like 5 minutes away, right? And she started screaming on the phone. I think I was 2 minutes away at that point. She started screaming, and she was like, ah. She's like, Sydney, she was like, he's dead. She's like, he's dead, like, he's gone. She was just screaming, and I was just like, hold on. I was like, please, like, hold on. I was like, don't tell me that. I was like, don't tell me that. I'm literally right here. I'm pulling up. Like, I didn't want to believe it. And basically, we pulled up, and she was crying, and the cops were already there. It was pretty quick. They responded pretty quickly. I'm assuming the neighbors had already called the cops because of his ruckus, so they're already on the way. And basically, I guess he shot himself in the head, right here, and right in the temple, and that was the end. He passed away. He committed suicide, and I hear that is one of the most difficult ways that someone can die. Like, I would say, like, the most traumatizing mentally for their family members or other people around them that care about them. Which it was. I always question, like, why would you do that to me? Why would you leave me? Like, but he was suffering, and I don't think it's fair for me to say, why would you do that to me? Or, like, I don't think it's fair for me to be angry at him, or I don't think it was ever fair for that. Even though there is times where I did get angry and say, like fuck it, like, fuck him, like, why would he do this to me? Why would he leave me? Like, why would he leave our family? But I got over that anger. There's 5 stages of grief, and anger is one of them. I remember the whole year of 2019 is extremely hard for me to remember, but I remember that basically in 2019, after my brother passed away, I accepted it fully and I understood it fully. And at that point in time, I really started to change my life around. Everybody has this go-to thing when they go through trauma, and my go-to thing was positivity and knowledge. So, every time I would feel sad, I would learn, or I would go to something positive. There's always a positive aspect behind the negative, and at this point, that's how I think of it now. Like, this is like the most positive impact and positive experience in my life that has ever come to me, because it taught me a lot, and it showed me that there is positivity behind the negative. No matter what it is, it can be the most negative thing, there's going to be something positive behind it. Just like with my brother, I think of it now as he's no longer suffering. He's in a better place. He was suffering for years and years and years of his life. He's with my dad now, and I think that leaves me at the most peace that I've ever been, is just to know that he's no longer in pain, and he's watching over me, and he was trying to do the best that he absolutely fucking could to get over the addiction, and he couldn't. He just didn't, which is fine. I understand it now, and I think that was the best experience I could have had for my life, because it taught me to be a better person. It changed my whole entire perspective on life. Like, when something traumatic happens to you, you either become more bitter or you become more compassionate, and I chose compassionate. You either become this person that uses excuses and sits in their sorrow for the rest of their life and say, oh, I'm this way because this happened to me, so I'm forever going to be this way. Or you can either be like, you know what, I don't want to be like that. I want to change my life for the better. I want to make them proud. I want to get up and do something about it. I'm not going to use excuses in my life, and I'm going to make a better life for myself, because I know that I can do it. Everything in your life is a choice, and I strongly stand by that and believe that, because if I chose to, I could have gone down the sorrow path, and I could have said, oh, I'm negative, I'm using all these excuses for the rest of my life because my brother killed himself, because my dad died, because my grandpa died, because my brother and my dad put us through abuse for our whole lives. I am this way because of that, and I'm forever going to be this way. No, I don't want to be like that, and I'm never going to be that type of person. And I want to show and inspire you guys that you don't have to be that way. You need to change your mindset and understand that you have a purpose, and everything happens for a reason. I know that this happened for a reason, and that was a plan for better days for me, because now I get the opportunity to share my story with you guys and show you guys that you can get through anything that you fucking believe that you can't get through. You can fucking get through it, and you can come out stronger than you ever have before. This has taught me so much mental maturity. I keep saying and I hate it, but I'm so sorry. I just, there's these blocks in my head. I need to get better at speaking. So, I know I'm gonna catch myself saying that. But yes, it taught me a better life, and it changed my whole perspective on life. It taught me to be a better person and to inspire people that they can get through it. No matter how depressed you are, you can get through it. There's pain. There's light behind the pain. It's not just pain. And I know that it's hard to see the light behind the pain, but I promise you, it's going to be worth it. You can always look at the positive aspects. Always, always, always. There's something negative. Don't always think about the negative. Think about the positive that can come in too. Just like with my brother, when he passed away, I was like, okay, this is my chance to change. This is my chance to change my perspective. This is my chance to show my purpose and show people that they can get through depression. I know it's hard, but you can push through it, and people care about you. As much as you don't think that, people love you and people care about you, and you can get through anything. You're fucking strong mentally. And I just want to be that inspiration, and I want to be that person to make my brother proud, as well as inspire people to understand that you can get through anything. Literally, like I can say this 10 times a day, that you can get through anything. And I know that some of you may not believe in God, but personally I do, and what I believe is God will never put me through more than I can't handle. Just like I remember one time I said that, I put that in a comment on TikTok. I said, God will never put you more than you can't handle. And then I remember someone commented back and said, well then why can't I handle this that I went through? I'm like, you're handling it right now, but you're not handling it in the best way. You can change your mindset and you can handle it in a positive way. There's better days out there for everybody, and honestly, I'm so thankful that I got to experience all this trauma throughout my life, because I never would have been who I am today, and I never would have got through anything in life if I didn't teach myself to become better. I believe that God put me through a different sort of light to shine, and it was a very dim light, but I got that light and I shined right through it. And just know that you're important, you have a purpose. Not everything is gonna go your way, not everything is gonna be positive, but always look for a positive in the negative. If you think about a negative thing, remember to think about a positive thing too. Don't just think about the negative. And you really have to train your mind mentally to do that. I still have a hard time with that myself too sometimes. I go through these phases of depression where I don't want to do anything for weeks, and it's really hard on my mental health sometimes, but I get through it, and I get through it by thinking of the positives behind the negatives. Understanding that everyone has a different story. Your story may not be my story, but it may be similar to in which way it can help you. Just know that I know that you are trying, and I know that you are doing your best to be the best that you can. And just remember to always be yourself, because you never want to grow into a person that you aren't and be miserable for the rest of your life. If people don't accept you for who you are, and if you're worried about friends, then it's not going to get you far in life. If you're always worried about being the cool person, being someone that you aren't, you're going to be miserable forever. If you be yourself, the true people are going to come around you, the real people are going to come around you, and they're going to see your purpose, and they're going to shine with you, and they're going to be there for you, and they're going to help you. So just know to be yourself, because that is just that's really the bottom of the barrier. That's really what changed my life, is kind of being myself and understanding it's okay not to be like everybody else. Not everyone is different, and you don't want to be a sheep that follows what everyone else does. You want to be yourself, and you want to love who you are for you, not just for everyone else. But if you love yourself for you, all the real and right people will begin to come around. Just know that there is passion, there is purpose, there is life, there is love, there is light behind all of the sorrow, pain, misery, and things that you are dealing with. Just know that it's all in your mind, and you will get through it. That you are the best that you can be. You're trying your best, and you're a great person deep down. Just don't let anybody ruin your spark, and shine through your purpose. Be the inspiration to others. Love people. Care about others. Don't spread hate, spread love. Thank you guys so much for listening to my story. I hope it has taught you something, and I hope I inspired you in a way. I will start posting more soon. I think I have a really hard time with being afraid of being judged, and that's why I don't post so much. But that's one thing that I'm overcoming as well, is that fear of being judged, or like, you know, people that know me from my past. That's what I'm scared of, people judging me from my past, and that's one thing that I need to get over personally. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something from this, and I hope you know that there's brighter days behind the pain. You guys all have a great day, have a great night, wherever you are. Love yourself and be yourself. Thank you so much. Now.
It happens, and like they understood that shit with me too, bro. When it happened with me, it happened with me, but now I'm trying to change my life, bro. I'm not trying to be a gangster. I don't want to be a gangster, bro. I'd rather just be a fucking whatever, bro. I don't want to be a gangster, dude. Because they, although even some of the real OGs, not the fake little bitch ass niggas that want to fucking tell you that that's the fucking way to go. That's the money, that's where the money is at. Yeah, you'll make some money, bitch.
Yeah.
You'll make a couple thousand, but is it really worth the rest of your life?
Yeah. Perhaps I was blind to the facts, stabbed in the back.
Drinking some water. Losing much.
Alright, so you need to accept yourself, okay? You need to like accept yourself, accept everything. Like, no one's perfect, and neither are you guys or me. No one's perfect. You just need to accept yourself. Use everyone as like a mirror, like, cause that's how they are. So use them as like a mirror, and that's how, like, you know how things are. But pretty much that's how it is. But there's another 5 rules I need to tell you guys, but I'm gonna tell you in the next video. So hit me up next time for the next video. You can follow me at